Greetings, brothers and sisters.
Hello, good afternoon.
And how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I am over the hump of the caffeine withdrawal, which was a fucking nightmare. So I feel great today.
Good.
How are you guys?
As always, in the thatness. So, we wanted to touch on something before we began and took questions. We kind of rushed the end of the meeting for the last previous one because of trying to get you to your lesson on time. And as we ended, we realized that there was an opportunity missed of information. So we wanted to present an idea. We often use the expression that what you have now is exactly what you'll have after. When you liberate, the only difference between the two is how you perceive it. And that is a wonderful expression. It can easily go on your bathroom mirror to be read every day to feel good. But did you want to actually have a situation presented to you to actually show how that works?
Yes.
Okay. At the end of the meeting, the previous meeting, we talked briefly about the fact of when our son was going through withdrawal, that not everything you were feeling was your own feelings. And that the moment he started smoking again, the effect of it wore off. And that the emotions calm back down. And we brought up the fact of him being a psychic being, and he says all the time how he applies shields to not only keep out others' thoughts and feelings, but not to project his own, to be very, very conscious on what he extends so that he is not projecting that out onto other people. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So we wanted to talk on that. Our son has brought up to you about the fact of that when he was younger, he was a manipulator in hell on wheels, has he not?
Yes.
So we wanted to go into that perspective and start there.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is when he was younger, he learned how to be a good spokesperson. Now, before we go any further there, we're going to bring your attention to the present. You have often seen many people be attracted to him because of his ability to be able to say in words and grab thoughts and emotions that the person was dealing with but had no way of putting it into conscious context. And you've watched him many times do that for them, assemble it, explain it, present it back to them, and then give the larger view of it, have you not?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that it's one of the things you value about your relationship with him is that he has that ability to do that?
Very much so. One of many.
So it's a valued trait, is it not?
Yeah, and I think part of it is because it's unique. Well, uniquely expressed. Not very many people express that.
Exactly. So now we want to go into the past and start our story there. So our son, when he was younger, he had spoken to you that many times he always believed that there was something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that he hid from everyone around him and was trying to actively be part of the wallpaper, to not be noticed. Because the moment that they do notice him is the moment they will dislike him. Because he knew there was something wrong with him. an interesting mental and emotional construct. One that would be garbed in illusion, purposely protected, to stay camouflaged, is it not?
Yeah.
It would create a complex idea and being, and that he was. And he learned that through situations, especially in groups and then individuals, that if he wanted to, through the power of words, he can control the situation and the conversation to paint reality as he saw fit. And it didn't matter whether the reality was true or not. He enjoyed playing with creating reality as he saw fit.
That was his way of basically controlling the play, directing the play to fit the illusion of something wrong with him.
Correct. So if someone noticed something that he did that was not appropriate, which he did often, he could very easily at that point repaint reality through words, through constructs, and that people would listen. People would follow what he was saying. And it was a great way to deflect the truth, to stay protected. And he became conscious that he was doing it, and then started enjoying doing it, which developed in Staten Island at the peak just before everything began to fall apart for him. This was just before the time period of meeting his first human teacher and being introduced to Woman of the Forest. And so as he built this game, they became more and more elaborate. He started testing. Can he paint people's emotions? Can he make them feel a certain way?
Oh, whoa.
Can he influence their thoughts? The two are connected. One doorway led to another. How far does that extend? And in truth, using terms that you would have here to understand such things, very black magic. He also learned that eventually, and he has spoken his truth to you, that no matter how someone influences you, eventually the mind changes back and will pick up right where it left off before the influence came into bearing. Has he not?
Yes.
He learned this through that trial effort of manipulating and influencing what people were feeling and thinking. Because they would eventually, if he wasn't present, change back. And it became that much harder to re-influence and install what was there previously.
What does that mean? It would be harder for him to go back and pull that off again?
Correct.
Okay.
They had developed a resistance. They psychically began to become aware of the invasion. And while they had no words for it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't there within the conscious level of them being angry with him, even if they didn't understand why. And it required more energy to get them to put their shields down, to listen to what he was saying. And it got to the point that the games became very confusing. Because as he said, he had several groups of friends that he visited and traveled
Oh, so okay, because I thought it was just putting on a facade, like I would put on a facade with bandmates, with workmates, with D&D mates. No, this is deeper than that.
to. And the deepness of it, understand that everyone does the same game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know I do.
You play a certain role. You get people to believe that role. And you get people to believe your side of that role. And usually, it's about being a victim of something to create sympathy, to attract attention.
My suffering's worse than your suffering.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
But he was doing it consciously.
Oh.
And he recognized a talent. And he sharpened that talent. Now we move forward, and he's talked about many different changes that he's been through, and how his first teacher would confront him. Crawford would always confront him about what a manipulator he was, how dishonest he was.
Is that why he has a bugaboo in calling me a control freak?
Correct.
When it's something it's as simple as, I don't know, I'm going to exaggerate. Oh, I decided to flavor this with a little lime because I thought it might be fun when he didn't want lime. You know, some things that would seem innocuous to me may come off as controlling to him, whether or not it was.
He is very sensitive with the idea of controlling because of his relationship with Crawford, because Crawford was very controlling.
Okay.
He had met someone that could beat him at the game. But at the time, Crawford helped him overcome that hindrance and learn not to play the game. So we stop for a moment and say, let's look at what we have. We have someone who is empathic and psychic and consciously recognize the energy play of creating the illusion of dressing up the mannequin, and was intuitively, to begin with, quite good at protecting his mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
Part of this is because of the situation and the way that he grew up. The other part of it is the gifts that he was endowed with when he came in. There was a choice to choose the families because the bloodlines naturally have it within it, to gather the tools to do the work. And so the gift was naturally there. And then he became conscious of it and tested the bounds. How far can I influence emotion? How far can I influence thought? How do I paint that reality so that they don't even know what's real and what's not? In one moment, those that they supported and loved, by the end of the conversation, they saw them as horrible people. And because they were horrible people, they were no longer threats to him.
Mm. And this is a gift within the bloodline he chose?
To be empathic, telepathic, psychically aware, yes. Sensitive to energy. And then you bring his knowledge of being in to understand as that energy moves through what that means. and you have a mind that is hurt and unawakened, a deadly mix. But yet, the gift is there. The ability is there. We wanted to point out to look at what it has grown into. Through him working on himself, he now sits before people and knows just what to say, how to phrase it. Inflections, body motions, hand motions, to allow the person to receive the information. But what is he choosing to flow through it, and what is he surrendering to that is orchestrating the movement? Yes, we bring up the video from last night just to annoy him about the orchestra waving the wand. And so, what is it that is orchestrating it? What will is he following? And he has spoken to you of this before, that when he is working one-on-one with someone, I don't know what I'm saying. I just know I need to say it, and I follow that flow. It moves me.
Is this the higher self?
In part, yes. Because agreement must be there, but is also how we work through him. When he works with people, he is never alone. And so it is like an orchestra. As the wand waves and the tempo changes, he changes with it. He moves, and he becomes part of the symphony that is being played. All of it to present to the person before him what it is that they need to hear, what it is they need to see, to reach to a realization. Have you ever had the moment when he has been doing that with you? And it's very subtle, where it finishes, and you see what was said, the broader view becomes exposed. It's not that you know it just yet, but you can almost taste it. You get a glimpse. Mm-hmm. And then he stops and starts doing regular daily duties. Goes back to chainmailing. Goes back to doing the dishes. Goes outside for a cigarette. Whatever it is that he does to break from the energy and allow it to be it, and you to be you, and him to be him. But the moment that it breaks, it's almost a quick, what just happened? Because suddenly, your thoughts or emotions are your own again. And you're left with that glimpse that was achieved. Do you know what we're speaking of? Does this sound familiar?
This happened, I forgot what it was, the specific question was. I remember I was sitting on the couch and I was talking about understanding the mind without using mind, and how every time I step back and observe, it's done through thoughts. And I remember he was talking about the analogy of someone throwing the stone into the lake, and I'm sitting there fascinated by the ripples, but who's throwing the stone? And I remember it was all in my mind, I'm like, this is such fucking bullshit, but I'm going to write it down. I'm just going to keep writing it down. And I wrote it down, and then he broke, and I felt like I could breathe. Mm-hmm. And then I started to put the pieces together, and I got clarity. I believe it was later on that day I kind of looked through the book again, and things just started to fall into place a little more.
Correct.
And also, what's interesting was that analogy of the ripples. It was even in the book that I was reading later after he talked to me about it or channeled that information, and I started noticing more information on ripples.
And how did he possibly know that that was the thing to say? That type of what would be called a miracle would occur? A alignment of coincidences to support a change. And you already know if you brought that to him, he would say, I didn't know, but I knew it needed to be said. Correct?
Yep. And then he'd go back to looking at homes we can't afford.
Correct. Continue picking on his thought process when he does this.
Okay.
Because he needs to see how often he actually does it. Because it really is subconscious for him. Mm-hmm. He re-listened to the lesson that we gave, where he had that epiphany for the diary of the channel, and we congratulated him in the beginning, and then gave a whole explanation directly afterwards, and realizes how much it actually does apply to him, not to that particular situation, but how powerful it is because this is running through his mind unconsciously. And every time you bring it up, he gets angry.
Yep.
But he knows he needs to hear it because it's pointing out to him the reality of what is present within his mind and how often it is a companion. And even when we say he gets angry, he does not outwardly act that way. He does not say anything, but yet it's palatable in the room. When he gets angry, it fills the room instantly. It's amazing things do not knock off the shelf.
Yep.
Empath. You are witnessing his empathic abilities. Now, he has done much work to control those so they do not control him. And the reins of that gift do not lead to the ego and is not used to dress the mannequin, defend the mannequin, or justify the mannequin. He has passed those reins to the higher self, to that which is, to that source of wisdom, consciously. And look at what was originally a problem and the way that it was perceived. And we don't even want to call it a problem, but it's a matter of what it was consciously being used for. Because of the way that it was perceived. And we're avoiding the word problem because we don't want to put a good or bad on it to stimulate for people's minds a sense of guilt of how could he? Because when you say how could he, how could you? It equally transfers within your own mind. If you're going to judge him, then you must judge yourself. And none of you should be judging anything because you don't know enough of what is yet. How could you judge if you do not know? And that is why, as they say, the good book says, leave the judging to God. It is not your place to judge. And people use that to focus on others. And what they always miss is that the statement was meant for you. Do not judge yourself. Because if you could accomplish not judging yourself, not from a place of doing it because it is right, but a place of understanding energy and understanding why it's true. Big difference. If you could achieve that, you wouldn't need to worry about judging others. You are only judging others to deflect that you judge yourselves. The statement was never meant to focus singularly on how you judge your other brothers and sisters. It was meant for how you judge yourself. Because without judgment, you wouldn't be able to extend it to another.
What do you mean by judging yourself?
You do it all the time.
Never. No, I do. I do, and I can feel what is meant by judging yourself. And I've actually been noticing it more and more loudly the last few weeks. But for the listeners at home, what do you mean by judging yourself?
Let us give an example. Thank you. That is actually really clear. So, judging yourself, putting it into a mental construct, it would be whenever you find a way to make yourself that wrong for doing an action, whether it's thinking, feeling, or taking a physical action, that was wrong. And the tone and intention in which you say wrong would be the same tone and intention that someone from a religious order would say it. You shouldn't be doing that. And most religious and spiritual principles that are in play in this world, that is how you deal with them. As you shouldn't do that. The 10 Commandments read about what you should not do. Not what you should do. What you should not do. The beginning text for Buddhist doctrines clearly lists what you should do, and then in separate lists what you should not do. Right and wrong, and what is in between. It is not an environment of learning your mind. And let us play it out. Well, I just found myself lying to my friend about a situation that I was explaining because I didn't want to say the truth because I felt bad about it. That was wrong because now I'm a liar. And I shouldn't be a liar. It is sinful. It's non-spiritual. It lowers my vibration. It knocks me out of the 5-dimensional thinking. You see what we did there?
I love it.
Because one judges the other as far as their techniques, but their techniques are actually the same. They just dress them differently. It's just window dressing. The intentions used is the issue.
It's different though from saying, let me see. All right, I'm training for a cross country run. That, all right. For 2 weeks before the run, I'm drinking to a stupor every night, eating a bunch of McDonald's, and then cramming all the work, like not really doing my workout and everything, but eating really unhealthy, consuming a lot of alcohol, and not sleeping enough. That would be an example of I shouldn't do that stuff because I am preparing for a cross-country run. There's nothing toxic about that. However, if you participate in that and then you label yourself as a person as less than, you're worthy, you ostracize your worth as a person, that's when the toxicity.
And let us use that
occurs.
example and you talk about the subtleties with it. Because if you are actually physically doing those things, you're getting ready for a cross-country race, and you find yourself not sleeping, eating unhealthily, doing all the things you know you shouldn't. And so you berate yourself that I shouldn't be doing these things because I'm going for a cross-country race. When the truth of the matter is, that's not the issue. The actual issue is that you're preparing not to do a cross-country race. And you're doing it consciously. If you wanted to do a cross-country race and you were excited about it,
That wouldn't even cross your mind.
but it is, and it's happening. So you're not preparing for a cross-country race. You are preparing to not be ready for a cross-country race.
I see. That's okay. Okay.
So do I not want to go? Do I not want to do this? Am I doing this because I feel like I should? Am I putting a challenge before myself that I'm not ready for? Am I putting a challenge before myself that I just grew bored with and don't really want to do anymore? There was the point in time in our son's training for the century runs that you watch this come into play. And he is stubborn. And he would go out and do 60 miles of riding on the weekend after doing 30 miles a day back and forth to work. And there came a point in time that his body was telling him, dude, enough. I can't take this anymore. For so many reasons. He joked, fat guy on a track bike. He is not built to do century runs. It was very difficult to accomplish those. And there came a point in time that you accomplished it. Congratulations. But it's not something that's going to feel good. It will never feel good, not in the way that your body is shaped. And his body resisted. Who else would you know that would train like that and at the end of the run have gained 20 pounds, lost no weight? All that biking, lost no weight, gained weight, and was still eating and drinking the same level that he had before. His body was not having it. And eventually, he broke and listened to it and said, enough. This hurts too much. There were points and times that he would have to stop riding and find some type of surface to try to pop his back into place. With his scoliosis and disc issues in that position, and then pushing the extra weight for his body, doing the same level of energy as people who are at least 150 pounds lighter than him, just to keep up. But he wanted to do it, and he wanted to accomplish it to show that he could, and he did. But then he started continuing doing it every year. And it took him a while to realize emotionally where he was at, which was, I am currently not preparing for a century run. In fact, I hate it. And I'm torturing myself to push myself to do it. And it gets harder and harder every year. And the bike has sat there since. Not even for a fun drive around the neighborhood. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And it makes sense with regards to procrastinating. If it's something that you're really excited about, there's no question you would work on it. Even if it takes you a while, you would work on it. But procrastination, I think an element of it is you're not excited about the thing, the project, the event.
And so the person in the moment would say, why not? What do I want? What do I need? Because there is no have tos. The person that is judging themselves would take the path our son took. And it's going to take a while and a couple of big bruises before you get the point that you're fighting yourself and dragging yourself. And the more that you do, the bigger the war it becomes, because part of you is not in alignment. But in judgment, there's no room for conversation. There's no room to be in that moment, because everything is being judged as wrong or right. That's how he viewed it. I should do this. If I don't do this, I'm being lazy. If I don't do this, I'm giving up. If I don't do this, I'm going to disappoint people. If I don't do this, people will see me as a loser. These became more important to listen to than his own truth. And for people in their situations, it will always come back to that.
It's the shoulds. I should do this, otherwise I will be qualifier.
Correct. It's always a math equation. If, then. And now, let's take it out of the realm of our private conversations and imagine we were witnessing this being done at a supermarket between a parent and a child. Well, if you don't eat your vegetables, you're going to become fat and lazy. So no, you can't have Captain Crunch because you're already fat. What would you say about such a parent? How would you view them as a person, as a being? Would you admire them?
No.
But you have this conversation with yourself intimately with no thought whatsoever. In fact, you get upset with yourself if you're too light on yourself. You should have been harder. You should have been more direct.
I really like that grocery store example.
Thank you. And so bringing it back to point, because we sidetracked for the question.
Yeah.
What we wanted to bring your attention to was that what the gift was in the beginning and what it is now, it's not done growing. Look at what he's done with it. And what has changed? How he perceives it.
So the gift and everything hasn't changed. It's his perception with it. And the change in perception leads to a shift in the outcome.
What you have now is exactly what you'll have when you liberate. The only difference between those two is how you perceive it. And it's not something, unless you fall into the rare category, that it happens in a blinding flash. It was happening yesterday, it's happening now, and it'll happen tomorrow. It's something that evolves. In each moment you exist, it expands and becomes something more because you are consciously choosing to. All my demons have become my friends. I don't believe in demons. Does that bring that concept clearer?
Very much so.
We wanted to take the opportunity to point it out when we realized the connection of clarity to it, to be able to take that expression and make it more real for people.
Yeah. And it makes me think when you talked about this evolves moment to moment. It seems like there's this idea of liberation being like an all or nothing end goal. Like, I am liberated, okay, I'm done. But I'm going to be so bold as to say I'm constantly liberating. And it's building and building and building, in that there's still hang-ups that I have, but I'm more aware that they are hang-ups that I have. And it seems like liberation isn't an end goal, an all or nothing end goal, done, bing, bang, bong, you're done. It seems like you were saying, it evolves moment to moment. Consciously liberates constantly with that effort, with that intention. Am I off in that, or is there a moment of liberation and whew, everything is good, you're all good?
You are not off. And we add a secret for you. So are we. But now we bring the clarity of the difference of the perceptions between the two of us. So first, there are those who go through the experience in whatever life they're in, where they go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. And we have spoke of this before, we'll bring it back up. We demonstrated to you that you had had moments of liberation. Moments where your mind and all of its noise ceased. And you were in a state of I am and being. There were no thoughts and emotions. It was just pure experience. Did we not?
Mm-hmm.
That was liberation. But then something caught your attention. Something you didn't do, something you need to do, something that needs to be done next. Measuring what was currently happening now and attempting to put it into a physical frame, whatever it was. And the state of being entered, and all of the thoughts and emotions and worries and angers and guilt and shame and onward and onward came rushing back in. And you were swept away by it again. There are individuals who have that moment and realize within that moment there is nothing else. And every moment from there on, they affirm that. But what about no, peace? Oh, but when I get home, no, peace. It'll take care of itself. And they stay in that state of being. That is instant liberation. But the thing of it is, that's a falsity even in statement. Because each of you have had a moment where the chaos stopped. And for a brief instant, there was nothing but the bliss of being and the experience that came from it. Lots of reasons that tricked it into happening, motivated it, doesn't matter. All of you have had that. Sometimes, many consecutive times during life. And then you chose to take your attention off of it. You chose. And it wasn't a matter of saying, I'm going to stop paying attention to this and go back into the chaos. Whee! It was a matter of taking responsibility that something called to your attention and you went to it. And as we've been pointing out with these meetings, we always bring up the hypocrisy of what you say and what you do. What you say is that you want peace and you want to understand state of being. But what you do is value what is not a state of being and what is not peace by easily giving it your attention and loyalty more than peace and state of being. And we've pointed out to you several times where this has occurred. Poke. 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 Because until you understand and become conscious of that happening in your life, in your own mind, you can't stop the game. Because you recognize it after the choice is made. And you're dealing with the results of it. The results don't matter. It won't bring a state of being. And it won't correct the original issue. The original issue is the actual issue, which is that moment of what you decide to dedicate and give your attention to. In the moment that you realize there's no value in what's drawing your attention, is the moment that you will supposedly liberate. Now, the other subtlety that we want to point out to you, the difference between the two of us as a state of personalities and what we call the meaning of life. On your hand, what is the meaning of life? Well, that changes depending upon what day we ask you. You're not sure. So let me discuss my theories. And we start our tea and coffee to have a philosophical discussion that requires no action. We know we annoy when we say that.
It's a bugaboo from my past, but I give it to you.
But understand why we say it. It's not about the whole idea of putting philosophy down. But even with philosophy and the changes that occur, is that it will change the appearance of the mannequin, but still a mannequin. This concerns strictly you. There is no philosophy. There is no philosophical discussion. It is or it isn't. Which is it? What is the truth? And philosophy, in that regard, entering into that arena where the focus is the truth, becomes that which is used to create shadows. Quite often. Not because of philosophy, but the intention of who's painting with it. I'm going to talk about the truth. That's not in the truth. What is the truth? No more talk. What do you know? And the most powerful response you can give is, I don't know. I don't know. It leaves your cup empty. Now, that being said, with the philosophy thought aside, so we go into the aspect that you don't know what is the meaning of life. Why are you here? I'm discovering. What's your point and purpose with this body? I'm discovering. I don't know. I'm not supposed to know. I'm supposed to discover as I go along. Okay. But we've said you are a spirit channeling through a vehicle. So if we a spirit and you a spirit, and we say there is a purpose, and each of us have that purpose, that have freed ourselves from the body, and strange enough it matches the same purpose of those who never took one, never tried the experiment. Still the same purpose. It would imply that there is an answer. Your angle of it, certainly. But there is an answer. Would it not? Should we cue in the Jeopardy music?
It's I don't know. I don't know the answer, but what what's sparking right now, what I'm sitting with is we took on this physical form willy nilly.
We took on this form with a purpose.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing. So there is an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what it is.
A fair place to start. But do you see the logic we are implying? Because we don't want to say it is, because it won't be until you realize.
Well, there's something I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I know I talked to David about it. But one thing that I really liked about teaching and tutoring is when the student is having a hard time with the math problem or whatever and ready to give up, and totally feels like an utter failure. And then I say something, they say something, a cup spills, something simple happens, and something in their mind clicks, and all of a sudden all the equations make sense. Everything makes sense. It's all fun. Math is not hard. This is great. And that is pure, unadulterated bliss for both of us.
Purpose. Purpose. So let us continue the explanation, and it will circle back to that to make that make more sense. So instead of stopping and expanding that, let us continue. So you don't know. A wonderful place to start. But we are not far off the mark that when we say that question, there are many people that would attempt to formulate some type of answer. And it doesn't matter if it's real, because it doesn't need to be real. It's play. That can change tomorrow, because who can know the great Almighty's will? And so we do the best we can. This is what makes sense today. Tomorrow I may change that. I changed it from last month. But this is what I know to be true today. Is that sounding familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that, in that aspect, is why we take that stance with philosophy. Not because of the clarity of the tool of philosophy, but because of the intentions using it.
That I jump on board with you.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly.
We wanted to clarify that so that you understood we're not insulting philosophy.
Yeah, no, now I understand what you're saying, and I totally agree with that. It's been used for good and, I don't know, for ill intention and good intention and misintention.
It depending upon what the consciousness wants to use it for. And it's not a wrong, it is. But it doesn't bring clarity. It's not the intent of it to bring clarity, because clarity is not the focus. Coming up with an explanation to make it make sense is. And therein lies the difference. So now we'll focus on us, spirit, and purpose. We said that we left the body. We also said we can choose a life with the body if we choose to. We can come in if we want to. There's nothing stopping us. But we've gone beyond that experience and have several times brought up the point, what would excite us to do so? Unless there was something we wanted to play with as an expression, joyfully. But for the experience of the body, how would that help our purpose? It wouldn't. So what is our purpose? And we bring back to the example that we started with what our son first started using the gift for, and the way in which he used it, and what it has evolved to so far. And again, we say, so far. And now that same gift is being used so that the reins are given to the higher self, and that which he worked and is connected with, to channel information, to channel energy in a healing manner, with a wisdom and an energy much greater than his own. And yet, it cannot be demonstrated without his. Do you see it?
Nope.
For your angle of energy to the universe, when you tap in and feel the thatness, if you're not tapped in, does it actually exist? And before we blow a few circuits, the answer is yes. But we're not looking to know it. We're looking for it to be demonstrated, to be extended through that point of light. Because only by it being demonstrated can you know you. And when you do, we know more of we. That is our purpose. That is why we are. Is to demonstrate, to extend, to channel that through, to creatively express with it, to follow that joy and enjoy doing so, ever expanding, ever growing, ever feeding. Because the gift never ends. There is no end to creativity. Let us put it in a more simple form for you. If we took you to a room and said, behold, God is painting a new universe, and you see this beautiful work being manifested or painted on a piece of, on a painting, on a wall, and you see it being painted, and it's gorgeous. It's amazing. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced. And we say, if you choose, and you connect your consciousness to what's happening right there, right now, you will be part of it. It will flow through you. It will use you to create colors. It will use you to paint part of the tapestry that is being created, that you call existence. But you must connect to it to show you what colors to use, to show you for it to be expressed.
As part of that expression, connecting with it, and you participate in it.
Would this interest you?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, let's talk about the goodness of I don't know, or let me create a reason for my purpose. Let me try this. Let me try that.
I don't know how to explain it other than you just... It's like stripping down naked and jumping into the river.
Correct. Well, that was dramatic.
Yeah, I saw the lightning strike right back there. Beautiful strike.
So, correct. But our point is that once you connect to it and understand, you understand you are always part of it. The only thing that was happening is you weren't conscious of it. But now you are. Now you can channel it through. And now you can paint appropriately. And we go back to the example we were explaining with our son. When he is in that space, he has told you that when he is helping someone overcome an issue by presenting it in a way until the aha moment goes on, or as Woman of the Forest taught him, you change frequencies and aim it at the heart. And like a garage door, you're on the outside with the universal remote until you get just the right frequency and you watch the heart open up. You're done. No more work is required. Because any being that sees it will take care of it. There's nothing else that needs to be said. There's nothing else that needs to be done. The work here is completed because they see it, which is the aha moment.
There's no attachment of having to get things done. There's no burden of needing to accomplish or needing to maintain an image or needing to do any of this. It's a strip naked, jump in, and go for the ride. And then bend with the river, move with it. You don't have to worry about fixing up a meal. You don't have to worry about Gatorade. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just, let's jump in and it flows and you're part of this. It's like when you're in the orchestra, there's the conductor there. You don't need to sit there and analyze all the strokes of the conductor. You just tap into the baton and you flow with it and you create the music.
Correct. And when you are part of that experience, creating it as a group, as one mind, as one movement, as one energy, is it not always greater than what you could play alone?
Hell yeah.
And do you not feel more at peace?
Mm-hmm.
This is of no coincidence. That's what we are talking about. Purpose. But the instrument that is being played is you. And you allow it to flow through. Not from the understanding that you lose yourself. You find yourself. That is why we say we are not confused. We are not alone. We could never be alone. We cannot be killed. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to be afraid of. And it doesn't mean in your physicality that you still wouldn't need to get the dishes done, do the laundry. But there's no attachment to it. Which doesn't mean you don't get things done. It just means it doesn't become a chore. It becomes something you are doing while being. And the Buddhists have an expression. Every action, every motion becomes a prayer. White Rock, the spirit teacher that Crawford channeled, used to say, the greatest gift and purpose the mind will hold, the physical mind will, the brain will hold to you once you achieve understanding is to balance the checkbook. It becomes the tool, not the expression of life. Does that make sense?
Yes. More sense. It made me think. I like the whole orchestra conductor analogy. It made me think of. So my sleep it's been more vivid, and last night was very restful. But actually, a topic I'd love to discuss eventually. I think once you're in through wholeheartedly, I'd love to learn about practicing lucid dreaming. But I've been aware that I'm dreaming and been more receptive of what's going on in my dreams. And even when they get weird, I'm enjoying them. But last night, among all the symbols and everything, there was a moment where someone was demonstrating, basically listing out words, me, I, solo, separation, and then us, we, unity, blah, blah, blah. And it was basically, the first list is, basically I got the sense of being a curmudgeon, of saying no, of contracting, and it was basically, this is bullshit. But when they tapped into the we, us, unity, community, one, I felt expanded and opened. And as I walked today, it was just, no, I'm resonating with that more, the we. And I remember you saying you'll understand why we refer to ourselves as we. And it's as I'm writing this down, it's just this whole separation of me is illusion.
Correct.
And then this is what I was talking about, the whole constantly liberating step by step, and that this is hitting a tuning fork within me, and it's like it's completely shifting a lot of the way I see myself and people and things, but it's still on the canvas of all the shit I have built and painted before, if that makes sense.
It does. You just explained the principle of that which you had before is exactly what you'll have after. And the only difference between the two is how you perceive it.
And now it's a matter of just shuffling the old illusions out of the way and cultivating this unity.
And again, what a coincidence. We bring up a lesson that gives answers to what was the questions you had about last night.
Yeah.
We just wanted to point out the coincidence.
Coincidence. I was going to ask, make it about me. Have I always been receiving lessons? Have we always been receiving lessons in our dreams?
Yes,
Whether we realize it or not?
correct. And it's a matter of whether or not you have that clarity of consciousness. Let us pause here and take a break. And then we will come back and continue this to truly expand on it.
Okay.
And we will go in that direction.
Okay.